Okay. Hello, hello. My name is Wendy Cirello. I am the transformational event planner or event extraordinaire for the Rich Litvin Intensives. On this call with me is part of the team that will lead the Rich Litvin Intensive in April 2019. We've got Varian Brandon, Jenny Calcone, Lori Shires, and Mike Harris. And the reason we are all getting together on this call is to kind of bring attention to the fact that there is, sometimes there's challenges that happen after being part of a transformational experience. Rich's intensives are always experiential and transformational, and there can be challenges. And personally, I learned the hard way, but I've done it enough to know that with a little bit of thought, I can actually set myself up for grace and ease. I can dive in and have my transformation and, my doors blown off. And I can come home to my world that hasn't changed and actually be more of I would call it just enter smoother, if possible. Sometimes it's not possible, but there's definitely a lot we can do, or I can do for myself to set myself up for that. So re-entry, the afterburn is real. So what I want to start with is that I want the team. We've all done this before. So we're gonna just share our wisdom with you and hope to inspire you to set yourself up for success and a smoother entry. So we're gonna start out with a little bit of how it has gone wrong for us. We're gonna for me, I just used to suck it up. I'd dive in. I wouldn't really source myself ahead of time. I would dive in and have it and, peel off all my skin. And then I'd come home and I would literally suck it up. I'd go to work in the morning. I would even sometimes restless sleep didn't matter. I just sucked it up and suffered. That's how I did it wrong. And everybody around me suffered also. Let's see, Lori, what are some of your, what's a little story that kind of went wrong for you in the past?
Well, the first time I did the intensive, I didn't take any consideration about what I might feel like at the end. And I had booked a full Monday. And it wasn't until late Sunday night that I recognized I feel so full. I feel so full I could burst. And I definitely can't have the Monday that I planned. So I painstakingly canceled everything that I had on my schedule. And I'm so glad I did. Because I spent the day just sort of unpacking, doing a lot of writing, a lot of reflecting, a lot of, writing with insights, but also writing questions and putting it down in a way that I could refer back to it later. Mm-hmm. And that was the best thing I did at the 11th hour to make sure that it wasn't a disaster.
Smart. Very smart. I wasn't that smart. I dove straight into my disaster. Mike.
So my first intensive, I couldn't have planned less for what might happen and how I might feel afterward. And so I went right from the event room to the airport and took 2 flights home. And I was blown wide open, had no idea this was coming. And my wife came to pick me up at the airport thinking that she was getting the same version of me, maybe a little tanner. And I get in the car and she's like, "You're weird. What happened?"
Wow.
and I'm like, "I don't know what happened." And I really I didn't know how to be. We hadn't talked about the possibility that something might be different when I get back. And
Mm.
and from there we ended up learning to create agreements around how we are, before, during, and after the event.
Mm. Thank you. You're weird. That's so frustrating for you. Something has, I don't know. This is not right. This is not the mic that left. Yeah. And I bet that was a little bit scary. Like,
Oh Lord. Because I mean, I would, because feel like coming, like getting off a plane feeling that way and just wanting to, like, wanting some space to process what happened, and now I'm being confronted with, you're different, I know it, and I want to know what's going on. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on yet.
yeah, I don't have words. Words are escaping me. Cool. Thank you. Thank you. Jenny.
Yes, I haven't really had a disaster after an intensive, because I've learned to care for myself, because if I don't, it would be a disaster. So I don't know exactly when I learned that, but it's non-negotiable for me. I now book the entire week off, which is still feels like a stretch. And so it allows me time to re-enter when I'm ready. It doesn't mean that I'm off the entire week. So it allows me time, and sometimes I just need a day or two, but I tend to take a really relaxed week because it's important. For me, it's important after spending a lot of time with a lot of people as well. And then being completely open. And I think Rich uses the metaphor of, it's like being in open heart surgery, and someone peeks around the corner and says, so how is it going? And you don't have the words yet, and you don't know what it means yet. You don't know who you've become yet. So I give myself time.
Smart lady. What does you say? Know thyself.
Yeah.
That's probably that's one of the best lessons, and personally, like, one of the hardest ones. And I guess know thyself and then act on it. That's the hard part.
Yes.
Yeah. I know myself. I just don't act on it. Thank you. Thank you. Varian.
Yeah, I am probably headed into probably the 15th or 16th, some type of Rich Litvin intensive over the last 5 years. And so it took me a while to even figure out there was a thing called reentry, because I didn't even know there was a thing. It was just like, okay, you go somewhere, you come home, and you do what you normally do. And it wasn't probably until about the third or fourth time that I started making the connection. Oh, when I get back, I find myself getting sick or getting a cold or coming down with some type of respiratory feeling of being sick. Oh, I'm a little more agitated with the regular world because, I've just been in this other world that, of course, is better than the rest of the normal world. And it's like, now I'm a little bit agitated at everything that's going on. And so it took me a while to realize, oh, I need to do some things for myself in order to maintain, sustain what I just went through, and also allow myself the ability to ease back in, that you can't just rush back. Well, I couldn't just rush back into my daily activities as I had been before I went. So it took me a while to realize the connection, because I thought I was just like, oh, I've been on the plane and now I'm tired and now I'm sick. And it was like, no, like Jenny said, you've been opened up in a lot of ways. And when you're opened up, what? You're vulnerable. And so you need to protect yourself, protect your energy, protect how you're going to be with the world intentionally after such a phenomenal event like an intensive. And so it took me a while to learn it, but once I did, it has given me definitely the information and the insight to be able to prepare before I leave, to be able to re-enter in a way that's good for me.
Yeah. Thank you. It's like, so I'm like, okay, so point number one, like, re-entry is a thing. Like,
yes.
That's a thing.
I didn't know it.
It's real. It's real. And it's and it's a little bit, I think that we have our lives tend to be busy, and we have lots of responsibility and lots of people. And so it's like, and we just carved out 5 days, right? We just went away for 5 days selfishly and just for our own personal. And then it's like, well, what, 5 more or 1 more? My goodness, 1 more it's too much. So thank you.
And you would think that we would listen to the name. You know, the name kind of gives it away. Rich Litvin Intensive.
Yes.
Right?
Never
Why
occurred.
don't we listen?
Oh, that's wonderful, Jenny. That is so great because now we add the care to intensive care.
Oh, we need care. That's right. We're going to scare people. Don't scare people. It is not the ICU. But actually, I guess if you could create, I mean, it's a great context, a great like thing to go, actually, I'm going to have an ICU for myself when I get home. I like that a lot. The good kind, the kind that includes massages and beaches and things like that.
There you go.
So okay, so the next part of this is like, it's funny, how do we create our ICU? The ICU is afterwards. But how do you guys set yourselves up? So I call it, there's like a pregame, a game time, and a post-game. Roadmap, plan, menu, I don't care. But like it is, I know from experience how worth it is to think about this and like, what do I need? Like, what do I need before I go? So actually, Varian, we're going to start with you. What do you need? What's your pregame? What do you need before you go to like set yourself up?
Well, one of the things that I need before I go is to get my house in order so when I get back, I won't feel all out of sorts because I come back into a house that's out of order. And like some of us have already mentioned, I make sure to look at my schedule and plan my schedule with the amount of freedom that I need, the amount of space that I need before I get back. I also let my family know that I won't be answering calls probably for the first couple of days because they'll know that I'm back because I let my family know when I'm going and when I'm coming back, and they'll know that I'm back, but I let them know, yeah, I'm back, but I won't be available for a couple of days. So I do all of that beforehand. So when I get back, I can just be. So those are the main pieces of my pregame. Make sure I clear my schedule, make sure I let my family know, or the people who are normally used to getting in contact with me, I won't be around. And I also figure out what I'm going to eat because I don't want to have to cook and figure out food. Now, I'm not yet at the point where I'm figuring out all this healthy stuff and my green juice and all of that. One day that'll be part of the process, but at least I want to figure out what I'm going to eat when I get back. So I'll usually get that prepared beforehand as well.
Oh, so you actually stock the fridge for when you get back?
I'll cook some things and put it in the freezer before I leave, and then I can just pop it in the microwave when I get home.
Excellent.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, Mike.
So, like I mentioned before, relationship agreements around how we're going to be before, during, and after. So, before, one of the things that we'll do is resolve to take like the last couple of days before I leave, we'll take some extra time to spend together, so that neither one of us is feeling disconnected before I even get on a plane. And you know, Varian was alluding to logistics, and one of the a couple of logistical things that I take care of is, one, making sure that all my transportation is taken care of. So she doesn't have to worry about driving me to or from anywhere, that she can just see me off and wait for me to come home. And the other is making sure I arrive a day or two before the event so I can kind of glide into the event. That way I'm familiar with my surroundings before we start doing any work at the event.
Cool. My dogs made their appearance. No barking, Jax. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mike. Sorry for the interruption. And is there anything that you do for yourself, like your own self-care before? For
my own self-care, one thing I've noticed is that as my body goes, the rest of my world goes. So I engage in extra self-care before I even start traveling. So for me, maybe like maybe a massage, but a lot of what I do is like salt therapy. So I'll do a saltwater float, or do a session in like a dry salt room therapy, and it really really gets everything physically right for me before I leave my home.
Cool. Thank you. Jenny.
I'm writing down variant suggestion of like thinking of meals before you leave. That's excellent. I've never thought about that. And like I do something like really very simple, but I schedule a clean for while I'm away, so that when I come back, it's not just about having a clean environment, but a clear environment, clear of distracting stuff or laundry that needs to be done, or so it's a very simple thing, but it really works for me because it's not something I have to think about, in addition to making sure my schedule is clear, which usually involves quite a lot of organizing before I leave so that I tie everything up. But it's just such a luxury to be able to have that time afterwards. So it's worth it.
Beautiful. Thank you. Lori.
Awesome. Jenny, I'm totally stealing the cleaning while I'm away next time. That's huge. I love that idea. So before an intensive, I like, especially the morning before, I meditate. I sit and I get really quiet, 10 minutes or so, just getting really grounded. And then I think about what it is that I want to get out of the intensive, and just make it really conscious. What do I want to get out of the intensive? And also, how do I want to show up at the intensive? I feel like being deliberate about that has been really, really a helpful tool for me, and even writing it down as well. But just kind of reiterating it when I'm in a good, quiet place is super helpful. So that's one thing that I do, and I love to do. And then the other thing that I love to do is take little Post-it notes and put them around the house where my husband and my son will find them when they're not expecting to. So on a pillow, in the bathroom, in the kitchen, in a random place, just reminding them that I'm not here, but I'm here with you.
Love that. Love that. So it's funny, the cleaning, I'm like, God, I would so love to do that. But that's one of the compromises that I have made with my partner. Because when the cleaning person comes, it stresses him out. Because I I pick up that, I'm the one who cleans the house before the cleaner cleans the house. Not really, but I pick up things and everything is in its place before she comes, so that when she comes, it's like everything can get clean. But I do schedule it very shortly after I get back.
So good.
But I'm like, it's not like there's the compromise there, because it will stress Tony out. It's like, please, no, I don't want to, no.
Yeah.
But I love that the clean environment is huge. And I am also earmarking having meals in the freezer. That never occurred. I never thought that far ahead. Yeah, so that's great. Let me think if there's anything really beforehand that hasn't already been mentioned. I think we've covered it. And again, to each his own. Know thyself. Give yourself what you need. If you need to have a party before you leave, have a party before you leave. Said the 7. The Enneagram 7. I don't do that. But anyway, we're moving right along to the game time strategy. So this is what do you do? And this could be related to yourself so that you can have the experience, right? Be fully in the room. And what you've left behind, or who, anything like that. And also, so I'll kind of kick it off a little bit. I do agree. I call Tony once a day, but it could be late. He knows that a whole day could go by and I might not call him till late, or maybe text right before I go to bed if it's really late. But I set that up in advance, and I try not to eat any sugar, as hard as that is, because it's the time when I eat, it's a slippery slope, and I'll eat a lot of it. And I found that's really it's bad in the moment and it's way worse after. Like the whole everything is worse after with sugar. So those are my game time strategies. Let's see, Jenny, start us off.
Yeah, I make sure I check in with my husband once a day, and it's usually late at night. And so that also means that he kind of gets the highlights of maybe what I'm feeling, or and I get his highlights, so we stay connected. And it also means that he has a bit of an idea before I come home, what space I'm in and how special it is. And I think what is very important again is going back to honor yourself. So if you need a little bit of a break from the intensity of the room, it's okay to step out and go for a walk, or there's going to be many more golden moments in that room. You'll have enough of them. You won't miss out. If that's what you need, as I'm flying the flag for all the introverts, if that's what you need, then do that. Go outside, step outside, take a breath.
That's a great catch. And again, something that I learned the hard way, and I haven't quite embraced all of that yet. But it's true. Like if you need, like, give yourself in the moment the space to have space or fresh air or whatever, even if it doesn't feel like the exact convenient or right time. Yeah. Thank you. Let's see, Lori.
Yeah. So one of the things that I hadn't said that I do before is I go for a run, which I'm a runner, so that's not an unusual thing for me to do, but I go to get just enough exercise to where I feel like I'm ready for the time that we're sitting. But during the intensive, I actually do get up and I walk on the breaks, and I walk for the whole break very often. Also, being an introvert, I just feel like I need a little time. I need a little time to move my body. I need a little extra time to just process and think on my own. And that's a really, really important thing for me, just to get moving.
Awesome. Thank you. Varian.
Yeah, during the one thing that's top of mind for me is, and I even prepare this with my clients or whatever before I leave, because I don't like having to be engaged with life even when I'm gone. So if I happen to, I like the freedom to be able to if I choose to, but I don't like to have the actual having to do it. So I'm not responding to emails. I'm not responding to texts unless I want to. Right now, I no longer have a husband or a partner. I'm glad, because I don't like the pressure of having to call or do something while I'm gone. I really just want to be able to be in that space to do whatever I want to do for those 3 or 4 days. That I'm at the intensive, and that gives me the freedom to absorb. Even like how a lot of times you're going through to these things and people are like, well, what do you want to get out of it? Talk about what I want to get, whatever I'm supposed to get. I don't come in with any expectations. My expectation was met when I chose to be there. When I wrote my check and I bought my ticket, it was like, that was my acknowledgement that something is there for me. And now I'm open to what that is and how it shows up. And when it shows up, I'm not married to it being any type of way. So I give myself the freedom to be in the experience without mandate, because I think a lot of times we come into those experiences, a lot of times people don't know people. And so if you have mandates on top of that, sometimes it can feel stressful. So I go in with the freedom of not having any of that and just letting the experience be what it is and letting me be what I am in the experience and trusting that it'll be perfect.
Thank you. Yeah. And whatever it takes to let everybody that's on your time or know that this is where Varian is. Yep. Or isn't. I am not in my email.
Right.
Nice. Cool. Thank you. Mike.
So I think like the big thing that I don't even think I mentioned this in the document we shared, was that every morning I have sacred time. So the first somewhere between hour and 3 hours of every day belong only to me. And maybe like a couple minutes to my barista, but Like that's the only person I'm willing to interact with. I just want some space for myself, some time to reflect, and and simply be with where I'm at in the moment, and what's come through for me over the course of my time at the event. And the other thing I do, which is the sort of the opposite of that, is I treat myself every day. Like I get like a little unspiritual treat for myself. So I go super basic with my coffee, and like I'll drink black coffee at home, and then like I'm like out on the road, and I'll get like a super, like I'll get like a sea salt caramel creme fraiche holiday mocha with 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 like blueberry bourbon whipped cream or something like that, like something really off the wall that I would never ever get for myself. And the opposite of the opposite of trying to keep things in check and in line. Like that's the one place where I just let it fly.
I love that. You give yourself one non-spiritual reward every day, or treat every day.
Yeah.
That is awesome. That is yes. Sometimes take things so seriously.
Yeah, and it really helps keep me grounded, because I bet I can be floating around all weekend, but it's doing something simple and unspiritual like that really helps keep me grounded.
Nice. And there's one of the things I give myself permission to do, because I know like what I put into my body, like what I eat, the sugar, the whole thing. Like I know that, like my focus, like there's so many things that when I do it right, go right. And then I give myself free permission to like, just say like, screw it. Like it is a cheeseburger and French fries and a martini night, right? Like, and I could be,
or Diet Coke,
Diet Coke. Diet Coke is the first thing that's the first thing that sneaks in. Like a Diet Coke will sneak in. I don't really consider that. I know I'm being bad, but it's not like an indulgence. Like just let it all go. Yeah. And I'm like, if I need that, I know there's there's a price to pay, but like I give myself space to have that, or like a big old square of lasagna. I mean, just a big old glass of red wine, just something delicious, because it ultimately it does serve me, right? I mean, it's not about denying and perfection. And so thank you for that inspiration, Mike. I got everybody with game time strategy, right? Yeah. All right. So now it's like post game strategy, and we've really touched on it already. So maybe this is post game time strategy, and kind of like even just pulling any threads all the way through. Like if I could just do one thing, it would be this. So let's see who hasn't gone first yet. Lori, you go first this time, Lori.
All right. Well, I guess for me, the thread is just like leaving connections from the world that I'm leaving behind to the world I'm going back to. So I talked about the little sticky notes. And there's this tradition that I've done with my son since he was tiny, which is at night when he's going to bed, we talk about the highs and the lows of the day. Mm-hmm. And so what I like to do after the intensive is go and have dinner. Usually we'll do like a taco night or something. And we do the highs and the lows of the weekend. And so it's a nice little snapshot, or the 4 days really, but it's a nice little snapshot to see how everyone is doing, and a check-in in a way that still feels manageable at a time when I'm generally feeling pretty full. So I have the opportunity to kind of share the little bits and pieces, knowing that later on there'll be a bigger share, but just a nice way to re-enter and reconnect.
Thank you. Yeah, that's sweet. Yeah, that's a big part of it, is just I think that the being in physical proximity with your people, it helps, like, because everything's realigning, right? Your cells are realigning inside themselves, but then they've got to realign with your people too. So like something beautiful and sweet and simple and in close proximity is a really good idea.
At the last intensive, it was actually sweet. They came and picked me up, And so they got to see, you know, a little window into the world that I had been in. And then we went and we ate somewhere nearby the intensive.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Varian.
You said if there was one thing, is that what you asked?
Well, it's kind of like your post-game strategy, and, you know, if there was one thing, you're like, one thing you can't do without. So we got time, you know, a little both and.
My post-game strategy is there's a few things that I do. I'm sure there's lots of things that we collectively do together, but I like to have a massage because I like to be able to move the energy. And there's, like Jenny said, it's called an intensive. There's an intensity that for me shows up in my body. And I also like a massage so I can create space for possibility. There's a lot that happens in those intensives that stirs your inspiration, your imagination, your aspirations. And it's a lot to take in. And I can feel it a lot in my body because I get so anxious about, okay, now how do I bring to life everything that I heard and I want? And it's like I start feeling that tension in my body of wanting to hurry up, wanting to create and wanting to do all of that. And so the massage helps move any of the stuck energy, and it also creates space where I can settle into some of the possibility and begin to see it from a creative space. So that's one thing that I do. I'm a person that likes music. I really connect to music. And so I listen to a lot of transformational possibility music. For me, that's a lot of worship, a lot of sacred songs, because it anchors in for me what I've learned and what I want to do and how I want to integrate it into my life. And so, and there's also like a cleansing that happens in conjunction with that. And one of the other things that I do that I'm intentional about doing is sharing some of my insights with a friend. I have this one particular friend that she's always waiting when I get back from something, and she's always like, okay, so what was it? And so usually it's her, but if it's not, I share maybe my top 3 insights to make it real in this world for me. That it's no longer just in a place that I go too far away and then come back, but I share it with someone in my world who may not be attached to that, but who's open to hear my insights, and it anchors it for me. And it also makes me feel seen for what's important to me, because I do a lot of different things like this that's different than some of the immediate people in my world. And so it helps me to feel seen for the things that are important to me by sharing that.
I love that. I think that's really, I think the power and the impact of doing that is very nuanced, right? Like it's very nuanced. And I just want to highlight that there's so many layers to what you just said, and doing it and being seen in your real world, right? I kind of call them my normals sometimes.
Right.
Being seen by my normals. And how it anchors what you learned. You're seen by your normals. And then like if you're imagining like you're not being seen is painful. And then so you're seen, so then it makes everything else even easier to integrate.
Yes.
Right. Like it just, like I like I said, we could have a whole call on the nuances of that, but like I want to highlight that part about being seen by your world, your everyday world. Cool. Thank you. Jenny.
Yeah, there's a few things that come to mind, and as Varian was speaking, I thought, for me, it's I have to be very careful who I share with. So I tend to only share with my husband because he knows me and he knows the right balance of sort of listening and maybe saying, oh, have you noticed that some discrepancy? But other than that, I use a notebook for just all the ideas that just come up. And I actually keep on taking notes beyond the point where it feels comfortable. So because there's always a point that comes where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to take action. You know, that might be like after a day. And if I allow myself to stretch it out and keep on writing for another couple of days, and I'm talking with my husband and about what's coming up, it's so much more juicy than what it was, you know, one day after. So I've really learned to do that. It's still a little bit challenging to take the time to be rather than start doing, but it pays off. You know, there's a richness to what comes out of it that is it's richer than it would have been otherwise.
And it's a great contrast, right? Know thyself. Like that's a stark contrast to what Varian's talking about. And that you can see, like, actually that way of infusing is what serves you. And that it's sharing with someone that you're intimate with, who knows he's caring for you in a way that lets you integrate and land. Beautiful.
Yeah.
We didn't even, like, we planned it. Mike, what do you got?
So the biggest thing I do is, normally after the intensive, I will stay in town for a few days, either in the hotel or with friends. And Rich says, don't make any major decisions for a couple weeks after you leave here. And I really live and die by that, in that, like, for a few days, the only decisions I want to be making are, what am I going to eat and what am I going to watch on Netflix? And it's great to transition me back to the pace of life, because if I carry the momentum from the intensive back into my everyday life, like you, I'm a 7, Wendy, and I would want to just keep going with it, like, just keep the tempo of the intensive up, and next thing I know, I'm getting off the plane and into a sweat lodge or something like that. And so this way I can kind of temper my re-entry to the pace of my everyday life, and then from there I find a balance of space and connection with Kristen, because she craves connection, I crave space. So this time what I'm planning is that I'm going to find an Airbnb nearby and rent it out for a few days, and go there from 9 to 5 every day, and either speak with my clients or sleep on the couch there.
Nice.
And let that be how I just amp back up into life.
Yeah, my goal, I try to carve out space. Like, I try to travel the same day or maybe even 2 days, but I try to carve out space where nothing is planned, and then kind of give myself what I need, whether it's a walk on the beach, or sometimes and I'm an extrovert, like, I'm an extrovert. So, but I just want to be, like, on my couch with my dogs, or I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody. And I've made the fatal mistake. Like, I went to a Broadway show once. That's like 4,000 people in a theater. And I'm like, I got to get out of here. Like, it was like the whole thing was closing in on me. This was maybe a couple days after I'd gotten home. I'm like, never doing that again. It's like, it doesn't work. So for me, I get real buzzy and ungrounded. So I just create ways to ground myself, whether it's like a really good meal. Sex is very grounding. I'm a fan of that. But just, like, create space and then fill it in with things that I know will be supportive, and not a theater of 4,000 people, even if it's a show I really want to see, because I can't enjoy it. Let's see. Okay, so we got to wrap this up. We're going to tie this up with a bow. Which may or may not, maybe it's a little bit of a bow. So this is a great thing. We're gonna go around round robin and give one. Let's see. How do I want to wrap this up? This one thing I didn't do. Everybody, who's gonna bail me out? I'm just kidding. So that, I guess really, to wrap this up, thank you guys. Thank you, Varian and Jenny and Lori and Mike, for joining me on this call, sharing our wisdom and a little bit of our pain from past mistakes, and how we really, what we do to support ourselves after the intensive. This call is made for everybody who's coming to the intensive. So we look forward to seeing you there. And my encouragement is, like, think about it a little bit. Like, think about what you can do for yourself and your life, and the people in your life, to give yourself this gift of this time and this intensive, and to come back and have everything that you got out of the intensive, like integrate it and love it. And I want to say pain-free, but that's so not like what I want to say, but just with as much grace as possible. With as much grace. I'm inviting you to give yourself some grace. All right, now we're going to go around. I'm going to, Varian, do you have an invitation or a little last?
Actually, I do have an invitation. I was just thinking about it. Like Wendy said, this is preparing for you all who will be attending the intensive, and part of your intensive experience is that we have an app where we all hang out during the intensive. And so I would love if you had an opportunity to watch this, to begin to just share some of the things that maybe you're thinking about doing as part of your reentry process, some things that we may not have thought of, and some things that other people may be able to take away from. So once you get access to the app and we all start hanging out there, share with us, number one, was this video helpful? Because to let us know that maybe, did you know, hey, maybe you're like me, you didn't even know reentry was a thing. You know, or if you did know it was a thing, you know, was this video helpful? And then share some of your own inspiration that others might be able to glean from, and us as well.
Thank you. Jenny, do you have an invitation? I love this. Let's invite them for something. That's awesome.
I would like to invite everyone to listen to themselves. It's the most important voice.
Thank you, Jenny. Lori.
I would like to invite everyone to just create a little bit more space than you think you need, and see how you can expand into that.
Thank you. Mike.
I would like to invite everyone to be more selfish than you think you need to be. It's easy to get caught up in including other people in our self-care. And that's fine, but make sure that you are, make sure that you're taking extra care of yourself above and beyond what you think you need.
Thank you. All right, team. All right, Rich Litvin Intensive participants, we will see you in a few months. Bye.